glomerular filtrate.
Yes.
First, we look on the renal blood flow, defined by the volume of the blood delivered to kidneys per minute. So the unit is ml per minute. So renal fraction, just now I mentioned, is a percentage of cardiac output that enters the kidney. And we know roughly the kidney receives 20 to 25% of cardiac output. So renal blood flow is the cardiac output times with the renal fraction. Let's say in a normal adults, we have of the cardiac output about 5,600 mil, and then we assume like 20%, we take 20% of the renal fractions. So you will have the renal blood flow as 1,120 mil per minute. So that is what known as the renal blood flow. So what is inside the blood? I know you already know about these things, but just to remind you again, to refresh back. So we have plasma. In plasma we have water, proteins, and other solids. And you have this erythrocyte, and the middle is the particles, the platelets, all these things. So we know the filtration of plasma into kidney tubules is the first step. The first step we need to filter for the urine formation. So non-specific process, the relatively non-specific process create a filtrate, which composition is like that of plasma minus most of these plasma proteins. Under normal conditions, the blood cells remains in the capillary, so that the filtrate is composed of water and also the dissolved solids. So what is renal plasma flow? The renal plasma flow is the volume of blood plasma delivered to the kidneys per minute. Measurement mil per minute. We know that if hematocrit is 45%. Hematocrit is the volume of blood occupied by RBC, and we know that this one cannot pass through the filter. So if hematocrit is 45%, then renal plasma flow is the remaining 55% of the renal blood flow. So sekarang kita tengah cakap the portion of the renal blood flow tadi. So just now we calculate the renal blood flow is about 1,120 ml per minute. 20% from the cardiac output. So RPF, let's say hematocrit 45%, then the RPF is 55% from this renal blood flow. If you calculate, you will get the renal plasma flow equivalent to 616 ml per minute. So filtration fraction is the fraction of renal plasma flow that is filtered at the glomerulus. From that renal plasma flow, how many percent is filtered? So in normal condition, we will have about 20% of filtration fraction. So how we can get this? By glomerular filtration rate divided by renal plasma flow. We're going to look in details about GFR. So basically GFR is the amount of plasma filtered at glomerulus into the Bowman's capsule. So just to show you in the illustrations, so we have, let's say we have the GFR in healthy adults is around 125 ml per minute. And the plasma flow RPF is 605 ml per minute. So filtration fractions, when you divided GFR to RPF, you will get 20%. How you measure? It's all inside the NAPAR. How we want to measure this RPF, renal plasma flow measurement? You need to measure a substance. Okay, if a substance is not only filtered, okay, but also secreted, such that all substance reach the kidney is cleared, then the clearance of the substance X equals to renal plasma flow. Okay, again. So if you take one substance to measure, okay, and then this substance character dia ialah dia filtered, okay, all filtered, but also yang tak filtered dia akan secreted, so everything will goes into the tubules, and then they will be excreted, clearance, okay, in total. So we can say that this clearance value of X substance ni equivalent to renal plasma flow. So what is the criteria again? Is measurable, okay, concentration in arterial and renal venous plasma, because you need to know how much in and how much out. Okay, is it equivalent with the clearance? And then not metabolized, so that you know exact amount there. Okay, dia tak berubah, not metabolized, and not stored, okay, and not produced by the kidney, so that you won't have additional in the calculations. Okay, and then does not affect the blood flow. Okay, so what substance that fit this criteria? We're going to look in details. Okay, first we look at the measurement of RBF and RPF. RBF is easy, you can measure directly with electromagnetic flow meter attached to renal artery, or by calculation. Usually we do calculation, okay, by clearance technique. So we have the Fick principle. In Fick principles mentions that the amount of substance excreted by the kidney per unit time is equal to the product of renal plasma flow and arteriovenous difference in its plasma concentration. Okay, so in calculation, the renal plasma flow equals to the Ux, means the concentration of X, the substance X, in the urine. You can measure the substance X in the urine, milligram per mil, and you know the volume of the urine, okay, volume per minute, and then you divide that by, you also can measure the concentration at the renal artery and at the renal vein, okay, the differences. So this calculation will give you the renal plasma flow. Okay, what substance X that we are talking about? This p-aminohippuric acid. Okay, is used to measure renal plasma flow. Okay, so about you fit the criteria just now. It is completely secreted, not metabolized or not reabsorbed. So everything will goes to the tubule for excretion, and it does not affect the renal blood flow. And the concentration is easily measured. Okay, so in clinical, we use this p-aminohippuric acid. Okay, clinical application, a very high rate of renal blood flow is required to supply enough plasma for glomerular filtration. You need high RBF, okay, high rate for filtration. So if the kidney is readily injured in a state of shock, where the RBF decrease, because renal tissue has a high rate of oxygen use. So this persistently low renal perfusion may cause the acute renal failure. So what are the clearance that we're talking just now, that we say the clearance of this substance equals to renal plasma flow? So renal clearance is the efficiency of the organ in extracting the substance. Defined by the plasma clearance of a substance is the volume of plasma cleared of a substance in unit time. Okay, either 1 minute or 1 day. So C equals to UV by B. C is the clearance of that substance. Okay, equals to tadi U stand for concentrations of substance in the urine. You can know that how much is in the the concentration in the urine, times with the urine flow rate, ml per minute, and you divide by the plasma concentration of substance. Just now you can measure the proof and the weight differences. So why we need to know about the renal clearance? Okay, because renal clearance can give the rate of glomerular filtration. Okay, so about filtration just now occurred dekat glomerulus kan, the filter. How you want to poke inside the nephrons to the glomerular to measure the glomerular filtration rate. So you need to calculate through the renal clearance. Okay, it's important to assess severity of renal damage. If you look at the clinical data, the blood, when they look at the renal profile, they need this GFR, eGFR. So there is a calculation. So, okay, it comes from the renal clearance. They take the urine and the blood data. And then the tubular secretion and reabsorptions of the different substance. Okay, for clearance tests, there are two substances that we can use to measure this renal clearance. Okay, if endogenous means produced by your body, so we can calculate through the either creatinine, urea, or uric acid. Okay, or exogenous by introducing a substance to the body, inulin and PAH. Okay, usually we use this creatinine. Okay, to calculate the clearance test. So this is just the summary. Okay, measurement of the glomerular filtration rate. Either you can measure it by clearance of the creatinine or clearance of the inulin. Okay, the formula used to calculate GFR or RPF are same. Okay, so this X substance can be creatinine, PAH, or inulin. So how about renal plasma flow? You can measure through the clearance of the PAH. Okay, so it's still using the same formula. It's just a different substance. Okay, for renal blood flow, how to calculate? Calculate from the RPF and hematocrit. If you remember back, just now I show you the hematocrit percentage. Okay, and then the remaining will goes back to the renal blood flow and the renal plasma flow. So this is just again simple. The formula used to calculate renal blood flow. So renal blood flow equals to renal plasma flow divided by 1 minus hematocrit. Okay, so again, you know already hematocrit is the fractions of blood volume that is occupied by red blood cells. Okay, actually you don't know the answers, so we just go through. Okay, I terbagi jawapan, so kita tak boleh buat. Alright, so if you look here, we have glucose, water, urea, inulin, and PAH. Okay, how to go through this diagram? Okay, for glucose, all these, okay, they pass through the afferents and go to the filter, glomerular capillaries, filtered. You see dia filtered tapi dia tak excreted kat sini, dia reabsorb kan. They go back to the capillaries. Okay, so this is tubule, Bowman's capsule, tubule, and then that's the blood capillaries back. So they reabsorb. So we can say that glucose is completely reabsorbed. So the clearance 0. There's nothing to be cleared up, excreted. So the clearance is 0. So when you look at the water, it's filtered, okay, but some reabsorb, some is excreted, okay. So how much excreted is like 1 ml per minute. So we can say that the plasma clearance of the water is 1 ml per minute. How about urea? Urea is filtered, okay, but it's partially. Kalau ni most kan ada dua anak panah reabsorb. Ni just one, so it's like partially reabsorbed. So the clearance will be higher than the water. Okay, inulin. Okay, inulin just now kita guna untuk measure GFR. Okay, so it filtered, tapi tak ada anak panah yang reabsorb. dia filtered. So sebab tu kalau tengok kedudukan arrow ni, inulin is neither reabsorbed or secreted. There's no movement of absorptions, reabsorptions or secretions. Everything filtered and excreted. So plasma clearance is boleh mewakili, can represent the GFR. Okay, normal rate of GFR usually is the 125 ml per minute. So the clearance of inulin equals to the GFR, which equals to 125 ml per minute. Okay, PAR. Okay, PAR is filtered, okay, at the glomerulus and secreted. Dia tak reabsorb, dia secreted. Okay, some that yang tak filtered, dia akan secreted, okay, into the tubules. So plasma clearance nearly equals the plasma flow. So that's how we look the clearance value that can represent the GFR, or zero clearance, or can represent the RPF. Okay, examples of substance used for GFR measurement, just now creatinine. Okay, creatinine is the endogenous product of skeletal muscle metabolisms, or inulin, the exogenous. Okay, it's a polysaccharide. Okay, it fits all the requirement. So usually I won't ask these calculations. You just for you to good to know how you get all these. What's the relationship between all this GFR, inulin, and all this substance? Okay. For you to understand. So example, if the concentration of inulin in the urine and okay, you have this concentration inulin, the urine flow, and you know the inductor blood. So you can calculate the GFR using the formula that I gave just now. So you will get the GFR about 125 ml per minute. Okay, this is just to show you the graph about the creatinine clearance. So you have the plasma creatinine concentration on the y-axis, and then this is the glomerular filtration rate. So the creatinine clearance in healthy people, okay, is about 125 milliliters per minute. Okay, so means that each person kidneys will clear 125 ml of blood free of creatinine. Okay, as I mentioned, the glomerular filtration rate cannot be measured directly. There's no machine or method to measure directly. So you need to measure the creatinine clearance. Okay. So again, you know, creatinine is a waste product from the muscle tissues. So as the creatinine is produced, okay, just now remember back the figure I showed just now, the creatinine produced is filtered through the kidneys and excreted in the urine. So this, the doctor measured the blood creatinine level as a test of the kidney functions. So the kidney's ability to handle creatinine is called the creatinine clearance rate. So this value of creatinine clearance rates will represent the GFR, okay, because everything filtered. Okay. Okay, why is it easier for physician to use creatinine clearance instead of inulin? Satu endogenous, satu exogenous for estimation of GFR. Both can be used, but they prefer more on the creatinine clearance because simple, it does not require intravenous infusion. There's no one likes to go introduce something into your body. So the easiest way and costing, right? So we just go and take the calculation of the creatinine clearance. So this is just the information. However, of course, there is a slight error when you measure the creatinine, but somehow anyway with this error we still accept the creatinine clearance is still acceptable in the clinical practice to represent the GFR value. So from all this, okay, the most important for you is to understand. We know that the substance, again, we have inulin, glucose, sodium, urea, and given the clearance ml per minute. So the most important, you understand the concept of the clearance. Okay, we know that clearance of inulin is equals to GFR. Stop. Okay, what? Okay, the next question is if the clearance of X substance, okay, is less than the clearance of inulin. So what is happening there? So indicates that there is the reabsorption of the X. Okay, because not all pass through. Okay, 125 is the one that been cleared in the urine, okay, excreted. But now we know that there is an X substance. When you measure the X substance in the urine, the clearance, the value is less than the clearance of inulin. And you know the clearance of inulin represents the GFR, the most filtered. So currently less from 125 ml per minute. So means that indicates reabsorption of the X. Okay, some of the substance being reabsorbed. So if the clearance of the X, in another case, more than the clearance of inulin, the GFR. So now suddenly in the urine you have more clearance of substance X. So means there are some secretions of the substance X. Okay, that's the concept that you need to understand. Okay, why is substance used for GFR measurement not suitable for the RPF measurement? Because inulin clearance only reflects the volume of plasma that is filtered, okay, GFR, and not the remains unfiltered RPF, and get passes through the kidneys. Okay, all right. So back again to filtration fraction. Filtration fraction is the ratio of GFR to renal plasma flow. Okay, in order for you again to know the filtration fraction value, so which is the fraction of plasma that filters through the glomerular membrane, you need to know the RPF. Okay, how to calculate RPF is through the clearance of bar and the GFR, clearance of the inulin or any other that can represent this GFR. So let's say if RPF is 650 ml per minute and GFR is 125 ml per minute, so filtration fractions, you divide GFR to RPF and you will get 0.9, means 90% of filtration fraction. So this is just for you to get to know, okay, how it derived this filtration fraction. Okay, so that's for the calculation, but now we're going to look in the specific on the glomerular filtration, because this is the first step, okay, of the urine formation, and so many factors contribute to this glomerular filtration. Okay, so glomerular filtration is the functions of the glomerulus. Okay, back to the structures, glomerulus is the component of the renal corpuscle. Okay, where you have renal corpuscle. When we say renal corpuscle, it represents the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule. So back, so renal corpuscle, glomerulus and Bowman's capsule. So we know that the glomerular membrane has that 3 layers just now. First we have the pore, okay, the fenestration, to prevent filtration of blood cells. Okay, we don't want blood to go through, to pass through to the filtrate as a filtrate. Okay, and then the basal lamina of glomerulus to prevent filtration of larger proteins, and then slit membrane pedicels prevent filtration of medium-sized proteins. So the characteristic, the narrow filtrations that splits between these projections are bridged by a membrane protein called the nephrin. So this at physiologic pH, this protein carries negative charge. So what is the functions of this negative charge? Is to repel, okay, are responsible for electrical repulsion of negatively charged macromolecule, examples the albumin. So again and again, that's why the albumin is not lost in the urine, although its molecular size is small, okay, because it's negatively charged. So this is just to show you in the figure, okay, in terms of the graph. So you see on the y-axis is the filterability and then the molecular weight. Okay, the higher molecular weight, the lower of the filterability, and then the molecular charge relationship with the filterability. So what are the clinical applications? Loss of nephrin occurs in the minimal change disease. Okay, so there is a selective loss of albumin in urine results in nephrotic syndrome, common in children, and in nephritis, plasma proteins are not repelled and are filtered. So this is proteinuria, or we known as albuminuria. So this just again and again to remind you two factors that determine the filterability, the molecular weight, and the electrical charge. Alright, so we go into the GFR. Glomerular filtration rate is defined as the volume of fluid filtered from the renal glomerular capillaries into the Bowman's capsule in both kidney per unit time. Okay, combination of both kidneys. Okay, the GFR. So normal value is 125 ml per minute. So why we need to know the GFR? Because we want to know the index of kidney functions. Okay, healthy or there is a disease there. Okay, if GFR less than 60 ml per minute, suggests some kidney damage has occurred. Alright, so now we go to what determines of this GFR. GFR equals to the net filtration pressure. Okay, this is the symbol. Okay, ultra filtration. Okay, net filtration pressure times with the, this represent the capillary filtration coefficient. Okay, look at this first. The net filtration pressure can be around 10 milligram per mercury. So what is this net filtration pressure? Bila net, I say the balance is the balance of the hydrostatic and colloid osmotic or aquatic pressure just now that we say that across the capillary membrane. Okay, and then the capillary filtration coefficient means that this represents the permeability multiplied by the filtering surface area of the capillaries. So because we're talking about capillary filtration, so it's about the permeability and the surface area, okay, of that capillaries. So now we look on this capillary filtration coefficient first, the factors. Usually these factors, okay, the changes in the capillary filtration coefficient doesn't provide a primary mechanism for the normal day-to-day regulation. Okay, it doesn't affect much if it's a healthy mechanism. But in terms of the diabetes mellitus or chronic hypertension, there is a decrease, okay, in this capillary filtration coefficient. Why? Because there is a reduce in the surface area of filtering, or there is a increase of thickness of basement membrane, which leads to the low GFR. Okay, the most factors that affected GFR is this: forces of the net filtration pressure. Okay, so it's determined by the balance of the Stirling force across the filtration membrane. So we have hydrostatic and osmotic or oncotic. So we have first is PGC, glomerular capillary hydrostatic. In the glomerular capillary hydrostatic is favor filtration. The Bowman space hydrostatic pressure oppose filtration. Okay, oncotic or osmotic pressure of glomerular capillary plasma oppose filtration. Oncotic or osmotic pressure of Bowman space plasma proteins that favors filtration. Okay, so you need to know which pressure is favors and which pressure is opposed. Okay, get it clear. And if you see the value, usually the oncotic osmotic pressure of Bowman space is 0. Okay, so usually in the calculation we just what is calculation because it's 0. Okay, the rest there is a value. So net filtration pressure is based on the Stirling forces. Is by the PGC minus by the PBS plus with the, this is the pi GC. Okay, so GFR we know that just now the ultra coefficient times with this net filtration pressure. Jangan pening-pening, the most important you need to know this. Okay, which one is favor, which one is opposed. I pernah tanya ni, tapi I tak sure best you nanti bicara. Okay, so this is just to look at the illustration again. Okay, you have the PGC, okay, sini hydrostatic pressure in the glomerular capillary, kan dia datang masuk renal blood flow, so dia causing the hydrostatic pressure in the glomerular capillary. Okay, kita tengok dekat awal afferent end dulu. Okay, it can be around 60, katakan in this case 60 mm mercury. And then you have the 5Vs, okay, the oncotic pressure in the Bowman space. Okay, we say just now is a 0, okay, boleh neglected. And then you have the hydrostatic pressure in the Bowman space, okay, in the Bowman space, hydrostatic pressure is around 15 mm mercury. And then you have 5Gc, the oncotic pressure in the glomerular capillary around 28. So if you use the Stirling forces, you will get the 17 mm mercury at the afferent end. So if you look at the negative, means indicate it opposes the formation. Okay. So at efference, the value is changes. Okay, there are a few changes number here. So basically, what we want to tell you here, the fluid. Okay, first the fluid will tend to move from area of higher to lower hydrostatic pressure, and from an area of lower to higher oncotic pressure. So hydrostatic pressures in the Bowman space remains relatively constant. Okay, if you tengok sini PBS, they remain. Bila ke afferent ke efferent, it remain constant. Okay, oncotic pressure in the Bowman space is normally reachable because very little protein is filtered, so they not affected much in terms of the value. But the most majority affected is this capillary oncotic pressure. Okay, capillary oncotic pressure progressively rise due to the filtration of protein-free fluid. So it's more protein towards the end. So that's why there is increase of this oncotic pressure. So we look in the each of these pressure, okay, in the Stirling forces, the hydrostatic pressure. So we have in the glomerular capillaries and the Bowman space. Okay, in the hydrostatic pressure of the glomerular capillaries is higher than the other capillaries. Kenapa? Because just now I told you the afferent arteries are short and straight. Okay, branches, and efferent have a relatively high resistance. So that's why they have a high hydrostatic pressure in the glomerular capillary. So the pressure is about 40% of mean arterial pressure. So let's say if your mean arterial pressure is 110, then the PGC is 44 millimeter mercury. Okay, so how about the hydrostatic pressure in Bowman space is about 10 millimeter mercury. Usually it remain constant. Okay, now we look at the oncotic pressure. Okay, in the glomerular capillary, the oncotic pressure is about 20. Okay, and same as in other capillaries at the afferent end. But once the fluid is filtered, can they pass through and then they are filtered, so protein retain. Bila protein retains, because remember protein tak boleh pass through, so they retain in there. So it rises, okay, towards the efferent, they akan rise, okay, maybe up to 35. From 20 the starting, they may jadi up to 35 towards the efferent. So in the Bowman space, the oncotic pressure, because it's filtered, so very little protein is filtered, so that's why dia boleh jadi kosong. Kita boleh abaikan dia punya calculation. Okay, that is the net filtration pressure, okay, the hydrostatic and oncotic pressure. So now we look at the ultrafiltration coefficient punya factors that affecting the GFR. So the size of capillary bed, okay, ultrafiltration tadi kita cakap pasal permeability and the surface area of this capillary. So the size, more filter surface. Okay, if more filter surface, then more GFR. Okay, dan banyak lagi ruang untuk dia filter. Permeability, there are two factors just now, molecule size and the negative charge. Okay, this one is the one that determines the permeability of the membrane. And then the changes of this hydrostatic and oncotic pressure. So, what is the relationship? The size of capillary bed is proportional to GFR. Okay, bila banyak more increase size, banyak GFR. Okay, increase of the GFR. Okay, so when GFR is reduced when there is a loss of functioning nephrons. Okay, example like aging, okay, after nephrectomy or renal disease. Okay, in the hydrostatic pressure, PGC, GFR is directly proportional to the PGC. Okay, when the blood pressure falls, okay, the blood pressure falls, kan tadi dia akan ditentukan oleh the blood flow tadi. So once the blood pressure falls, the hydrostatic pressure inside the glomerular capillary pun akan falls. Okay, so this filtration, net filtration pressure akan become zero. They stop. Bila stop, no more urine sebab nothing filtered. Okay, so no more urine. So this is what we call anuria. Okay, norepinephrine, okay, example, norepinephrine can cause renal arteriole to constrict. Okay, when there is a norepinephrine, sorry, afferent arteriole, okay, the first arteriole, afferent yang masuk, constrict. Okay, constrict. So bila constrict, less kan blood flow masuk ke dalam glomerular capillary. Less, the hydrostatic pressure akan drop, so reduce. Okay, example like ACE inhibitors will cause efferent arteriole dilate. Okay, so just now in normal condition kita kata diameter of afferents akan bigger dari efferent sebab dia nak bagi masa dan longer pressure, high pressure dalam tu. Okay, but now in this case, the 8 centimeter causing the afferent at the end to burst down, dilate. So more flow out, laju. Okay, so menyebabkan pressure kat dalam pun reduce, drop. Okay, because it's go up fast and much. Okay, in high volume exit. So that's how we look at the changes of PGC and the GFR. Okay, and later we're gonna look on this how. Okay, bila drop how, or increase, how it's been auto-regulate. Okay, control back to the range, and then the efferent and afferent resistance that contribute to this PGC. Okay, now we look at the hydrostatic pressure in the Bowman space. So it is inversely proportional to the GFR. Okay, example, like in the Bowman space, there is urethral obstruction. For example, like we have stones or in the late pregnancy or edema of the kidney inside tight renal capsule. This will cause the GFR to reduce. Because it's blocked and cause the pressure high, so it will cause the GFR reduce. Okay, changes in the oncotic pressure of the glomerular capillary is a minor factor, inversely proportional to GFR. So if in dehydration, there is an increase of the PGC and decrease in the hypoproteinemia. Okay, because remember it involved with oncotic, we talked about the protein. Okay, the concentration of the protein. Alright, so back to your filtration fractions. Looking at again, filtration fraction is the GFR divided by the RPF. It's about 20%. Okay. So what does it mean by 20%? Means that 20% of renal plasma protein is filtered. And then how about the remaining 80%? It will leave the capillaries by the efferent arterioles and becomes the peritubular circulation. So increase of this filtration fraction produce increased protein concentration of peritubular capillary and increased reabsorptions in the proximal convoluted tubule, okay, PCT. So if there is a decrease of these fractions, okay, FF, will produce decrease of protein concentration of peritubular capillary, which will decrease the reabsorptions of rate in the PCT. So now if there is a constriction, okay, afferent arteriole constrict. So if afferent arteriole constrict, renal plasma flow will reduce. Okay, so when this is reduced, the GFR also reduced. So filtration fraction is unchanged. Okay, example when there is a presence of no epinephrine. Okay, if in the other case efferent, okay, at the end efferent arteriole constrict. Okay, efferent arteriole constrict will reduce the RPF. Okay, but it will conserve GFR. Okay, even though it reduces the RPF, it still conserves the GFR, causing increase the filtration fraction. Okay, so this one will look on the glomerular tubular balance. Okay, in the next few slides. So what is this glomerular tubular balance? It is the intrinsic ability of the tubules to increase their reabsorption rate in response to increased tubular inflow. So the balance between reabsorptions of solids in the proximal renal tubules and the glomerular filtration, which must be as constant as possible. Okay, the GFR need to be constant as possible. If the GFR increase or decrease or falls, okay, the rate of tubular reabsorption must rise or fall proportionally because they need to maintain the within the normal range. Okay, dia tak boleh ada terlalu tinggi atau terlalu rendah. Okay, so this is all what we call as glomerulotubular balance. Okay, how it's controlled by the neural, hormones, and other mechanisms. So what is this called? The auto. Okay, it's auto regulation of renal blood flow. So why we have this mechanism of auto regulations is functions to maintain. Okay, the body need to maintain the GFR value to be constant. Okay, with changes the changes can be during shock or during increase of blood pressure. All these things, GFR are kind of affected, and then the kidney needs to bring back this GFR to the constant value. And also to prevent extreme changes in renal excretion with changes. Okay, you don't want the solutes that you need in the body pass through. Okay, excreted. So that's why all this we need the auto regulation. Okay, RPF, renal blood flow, remains constant over the range of arterial pressure from 90 to 200. Okay, between all these 90 to 200 auto-regulations, UV remains by the auto-regulation. So there are two ways, okay, for the auto-regulation. First is myogenic mechanism. Second is through the tubulo-glomerular feedback, or known as macula densa feedback. So what is myogenic mechanism? Myogenic, okay, so it's a muscle. It means that the smooth muscles of the blood vessels can cause the GFR and RPF to be constant in the case of BP increase. Okay, example, let's start. In this case, when there is an increase of renal arterial pressure, okay, when increase of renal arterial pressure, it will lead to increase of the blood flow. With the increase of the blood flow, it will cause the stretching of the renal afferent arteriole. Stretch, and then it leads to the reflex contractions of renal afferent arteriole. So it leads to the increase of the resistance. With the increased resistance, it will reduce the blood flow and maintain a constant RPF and the GFR. Okay, so it's through the control of the afferent arteriole. Okay, either they dilate or constrict. Okay, the resistance. Okay, that is the in the myogenic mechanism. So the next mechanism is tubulo-glomerular feedback. Okay, in this one they have two components that act together. Okay, we have the afferent arteriolar feedback mechanism and efferent arteriolar feedback mechanism. Okay, this is the one that we look at tubulo-glomerular feedback. We are referring to this side, the juxtaglomerular complex. Okay, this JGA, which has the macula densa, okay, in the distal tubule, and you have the juxtaglomerular cells in the afferent and efferent arteriolar walls. Okay, example, when there is a drop, okay, drop of the GFR. Okay, when you drop of GFR, there is a drop in terms of the flow rate, okay, in the loop of Henle. So below the drop of flow rate in the loop of Henle, it will increase the reabsorptions of sodium chloride in the ascending loop, which will decrease the concentration of sodium chloride in the distal tube. Okay, below the decrease, okay, the concentration of the sodium chloride in the distal tube, so the macula densa will give two effects. It will decrease the afferent arteriolar resistance, okay, by increasing the hydrostatic pressure and GFR, so that it can return back to the normal. And the second is by releasing the renin, okay, from the juxtaglomerular cells, which lead to release of the angiotensin 1 that leads to the formation of the angiotensin 2. So this renin is stimulated by increase of the renal sympathetic activity, or if there is a drop of the renal blood pressure, or there is a decrease in the sodium chloride delivery to macula densa. Okay. So we know that angiotensin 2 will constrict efferent arterioles, which will increase the hydrostatic pressure and GFR return to normal. So tubular glomerular feedback is sensitive towards the concentration of this sodium chloride. Okay, so it detects the sodium chloride level changes. So it involves all this renin and the afferent and the arterioles. So variations in the renal blood flow, it can be increased. RPM can be increased by when you consume high protein diet. Sometimes in the pregnancy, where it is the high cardiac output, prostaglandin that cause the afferent vasodilation, and can be reduced by the renal sympathetic nerve stimulation, noradrenaline or adrenaline, or angiotensin. Jangan renal. Okay. So jangan risau pasal formula or things. The most important you understand the concept and the factors. Okay, kita jumpa minggu depan. Baru kita akan tengok in details in water and glucose. Berhenti dulu di sini. Okay, terima kasih semua.
Thank you, Doktor. Thank you, Doktor.